All right, guys. So after explaining that project outline, which we do Friday, like I said, this video is gonna cover our exercises for today that will be due on Thursday. So we're gonna have some work to do here, and then you're just going to be turning in stuff. So you can think of it as if we were meeting. This is like the in-class stuff, and that project is kind of your homework, extracurricular. So what we're going to be starting to deal with this week is value. You can look up more info on value and certain vocabulary around that on your vocab sheet. There's a lot of info there, but without getting too into it, an easy way to think of value is light and dark. So how light or dark is an object? How does a light change across the surface of an object? We're talking about shadows, light sources. We're going to get more into that later in the week, chiaroscuro, but we're going to start with doing some subtractive drawing work today. So far we've been doing additive work in that we're using our material to add marks to add material down to the page. So charcoal, you add a mark, that's additive. Subtractive means we're going to be using our erasers to remove material. So your erasers are just as important of a tool as your charcoal, your pencil. Maybe not in the case of a pen. If you're doing a pen drawing, obviously your erasers aren't going to do you much good. Sorry. So being able to use your erasers effectively, you can bring out highlights, you can show textural quality of the surface. This is as crucial of a drawing tool as this. They should go back and forth, hand in hand. Not only are you using the erasers to make adjustments, you can use your eraser to actually make marks to communicate stuff going on in your drawing. So once again, we've got the 3 different erasers. We talked about this in our materials. You've got this kneaded eraser, you've got Staedtler white eraser. I'll open this guy up real quick. And then we've got the pink pearl eraser, this guy over here. And we're going to be using all these a lot today. So once again, the first thing you want to do is just take this kneaded eraser and just start working it until it's warmed up. When you're ready to draw with it, you can see mine's like really stiff, not wanting to stretch. If it's hard for you to work the whole thing at once, you can break it in half, and then just, once it gets warmed up, it gets really easy to knead on top of itself. But it's best to kind of start your day by just getting this guy warmed up, because you're going to use it quite a bit. So one of the challenging things about drawing is and the reason I like to start with charcoal as opposed to pencil. With pencil, it's really easy to just be too soft and careful and gentle and not bold enough with it, right? Like it goes on soft and you can stay really light, but how do you go all the way to black? Like that can be scary for a lot of people because it can get messy and it can be hard to push yourself to go that far. But it's important, that you might be drawing something and you have to go that dark. So for some people that's scary, but it's also important to know that your drawing is this process of push and pull, right? So like you take something too far, you make a mistake, you can erase it out, fix an area, or maybe you realize in your still life, this object needs to be just a hair over here on my drawing. Sorry, the little thing popped up on my screen. In which case, you have to make that change. You can't be afraid to make those changes. That's part of drawing. Even if you know it's going to take you an extra hour or two to finish this thing, that's part of it. Like we said on day 1, managing those expectations. Like, if you have to work for an hour on a drawing, that's pretty minimal when some of those people that we saw in our initial slideshow are working for 100 hours on a drawing to get it to look a certain way. So, you can't expect it to be all that good if you're not willing to make the changes to make and put in that extra time to make it good. So this exercise is going to help a lot with that. So I've got a piece of newsprint here, and the first thing we're going to do, you can use your nice paper for this if you want, is you're going to get your compressed charcoal, and in here like I said, they have, you can see that they have these marks of darker and darkest. So this is 2B, and the higher the number B, the darker it's going to get. So this one over here, I'm pretty sure, is my 6B. And so you're going to get your 6B charcoal, compressed charcoal, and I want you to fill this entire page black. So it's going to take some elbow grease. It's going to be messy, warning you now. If you're worried about making this big mess inside, you can go set up a table outside and do this. Don't wear a white shirt like I'm doing right now, unless you're prepared to get it covered in charcoal. Some charcoal doesn't always come out. So even in the washing machine, it could stain your clothes. In order to make this video not too long, I'm not going to cover this whole thing black. I'm just going to do a section of it to show you. So this is going to take some elbow grease, but rather than just go on the, on the tip of the charcoal and going this way to make the whole thing black, like you can literally just take this on its side and press really hard. Let's see. You can also experiment, like which one of these is going to go on darker. I think this is probably, if you can spare a piece of nice paper, is better to do on your nice paper because it just holds up more. So you're just going to cover this whole thing in black. So you can see, I don't know if you can see or not, but it's not super even. So then the next thing you can do is just smooth it out with your hands. Like get in there, smooth it out with your hands so that the whole page is nice and black. When you're done, you're going to have this dust. Your hands are going to be a mess. You can bang it off on the floor, or you can get a rag. I'm going to grab a rag real quick. And you can try to like pick up some of that extra dust. But like I said, it's going to be a mess, but you want this as blacked out as you can get it. Like dark, dark black. So maybe I could even give this another layer to go darker. I think it would end up even looking darker on my nice paper. So once you've got the entire page black, corner to corner, what I want you to do is you're going to take your eraser and down the middle of each vertical and horizontal orientation, you're just going to erase out a line so that you've got this in 4 different sections basically. So first step is you've got completely blacked out page, and then you've erased a line so that you've got 4 different sections. So pause it here, take a minute, pause it. As long as it takes you, black that out. I mean, if you're working quick, it's going to take some elbow grease. It's going to be a gigantic mess, but I think 10, 15 minutes should be plenty of time to black that out. So go ahead and do that, pause it, and then you can come back and I'll show you the next phase. So hopefully at this point you've got your page all blacked out. Like I said, for the purpose of this demo, I'm not going to black out the whole thing. I'm just going to kind of show you what we're going to be doing. You're going to set up a relatively simple still life like we did last time. The objects don't have to touch. You can set them up wherever you want. Make sure there's some good light on there and some variety, like maybe you've got one white coffee cup and then you've got a darker water bottle, so that there's some contrast there, variety. Not everything is the same value. But in the past, what we were doing, say, I'm just going to use the example of a box again. So before we were just using lines to describe the volume of a box, the overall shape, like so. That was all of last week. Maybe you had some cross contour come in over it here to kind of accentuate corner, and you got some variety in that some areas are darker, some are lighter, but just line only. Today, for today's exercise, we're not going to use line at all. We're only going to be doing subtractive work. So what that means is we're not going to think about the edges. We're we're going to think about the surfaces. These surfaces rather than the edges of the object. So if I'm drawing the same box, what I'm going to do is start erasing out those surfaces to try to match how light or dark they are. So for instance, the wrong way to do this would be, okay, you're going to use your eraser and I'm just going to draw out this box like this with my eraser. That's not what we're doing. So you can always, you got plenty of charcoal on your page, cover it up. So instead of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase out this front surface first. So you can experiment with your different erasers. You'll see that trying to erase it, this guy gets pretty dark fast. So then you just move to a new section. Maybe you even use this pink pearl to clean up the edges to sharpen them. But I'm just trying to think about erasing this entire surface out from the inside out rather than the edges first. So there are no lines here. The reality is that lines don't really exist. They're a tool that we use. I mean, they exist in man-made objects and architectural kind of design-oriented surfaces. They're a way for us to communicate. But in real life, like these edges are defined by two different values meeting each other. You know, if you've got a white shoebox, there's not a line on that edge. There's no physical line that we can see. It's these multiple edges. So right now I've got this front surface here, and then maybe it's a little bit lighter. You know, you can experiment with your different materials. What's going to happen with this guy is it's going to get, when it gets to the point where it's that covered in charcoal, you're not going to be able to erase much with it. So you can keep turning it until it's all totally black like that. Then at a certain point, you just start kneading it. And eventually it kind of absorbs that charcoal, and then you've got clean surfaces that you can erase from again. So now I'm going to try to get this one going back in space, and let's pretend like this is a slightly darker edge. Those pink ones work all that great for. So now I'm starting to show this moving back in space by just erasing out the surface there. So once again, there's no lines. You can bring charcoal back if you need to clean up an edge, but we're not, you know, just smudge it with your finger to sharpen up an edge, but we're not going to add back in yet. Remember, this is all subtractive. So then I'm starting to show this moving back. If this needs to go a little bit darker, I can bring some charcoal back over it. Maybe that's a darker edge. But right now, over here, I'm showing this edge solely through the use of this line. This edge here is starting to appear by the two different values meeting each other. So I know that can be hard to see, but I can clean this up even more. It could even be that the value shifts across the surface. So maybe there's a lighter spot hitting here, in which case I can come in and really erase out a lighter area up top. And then maybe, you know, it's a little darker coming in off of here and lightens up towards the back. You know, maybe outside of just the object itself, maybe there's some lighter areas and back behind this object. So really, I'm just trying to draw what I'm looking at with my erasers. So maybe on the top, there's another, maybe this is really light on the top. starting to kind of define that information. So it's starting to come together and look like a box without using any line at all. I'm just erasing out those surfaces. So hopefully that makes sense to you. It's easy to forget about our accuracy and our angles and everything, because this is a lot to deal with doing this kind of erasing. But keep that in mind after you erase out that surface. Check, okay, maybe this angle needs to come up, so I'll just bring a little bit more charcoal so that that angle kind of comes up. So you're going to make 4 different, in each one of your quadrants, you're going to make 4 different drawings like this at 15 minutes each. And that's what we're going to do for today. At the end of each 15 minutes, you can come back in and do some additive work. So like, I still don't want to see any lines, but if you need to sharpen up some edges by adding some value throughout in places, like so, you can take a few minutes at the end and like clean some stuff up with your charcoal and add stuff in. I still don't want to see, I don't want to see that across it. I want to see more like this. No lines, just definition of edges by the various values meeting each other in a nice clean edge, basically. So it's messy, right? Like disaster. But like I said, if you're worried about getting it on your clothes, don't wear nice clothes, or wear an apron or muumuu or smock or whatever you got to do. Find an area where you can make this kind of mess, like do it outside. That's it. So that's going to be our exercise for the day. It's about an hour of work. And then for the next little bit, your homework for this exercise is to create a value grid. So what that's going to look like on your nice paper, you're going to create, I'm going to post this up in the outline area as well, but you're going to create a value grid of 11 different 2-inch squares. So what that will look like here is you actually measure this out. I'm just going to do this quickly so that you get so you can kind of see the gist of it. But you'll measure it out and you'll have a grid. Let's see, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you're going to actually measure these out 2 by 2 inches, and you're going to label them 0 to 10. Do this on your nice paper. I'm just doing on my newsprint. This is what I have in front of me. 10, now that the plus side of doing that exercise we just did is now you know what it takes to get it completely black. Black, black, black. Now you're there. You know what that is. So that's going to be 10. So you're going to fill this one in totally black. All the way through evenly. And then this one's going to be as light as possible. And then your goal is to fill in the rest of the boxes. So it's going to be an even gradation. For a number 1, sometimes just using a little bit of charcoal on your finger, they're going to be really gradual steps. It's a really difficult assignment. That could be enough for a number 1. Or a number 9 even, it might look black. Like a number 9 could look like this. I think this is easiest to do with charcoal, but you can mix materials and you can use pencil. You might have to erase out certain areas as well. So the 9 will often look black until you see it up against the 10. So like that looks black, but then when I see my 10, might be hard to see in the video, the 10 is actually darker. So the goal is to have even steps all the way across. And so you're going to work on those 4 drawings for an hour, and then you're going to spend the next hour trying to create a value grid that's even and smooth. You want each one of the boxes as smooth and even as possible. So I wouldn't want one box to look like this. I want it smoothed out and even. And if you need to spend more time on that, that's your homework, and this will be due before our class on Thursday. So we can now, once we have this grid, we can use it to actually look at what we're drawing and assign a value to it. Like, okay, I'm holding up my grid. Is this, you know, is this gray right here? Like, is this actually black right there, or is that an 8 or a 9? Like black, like my hat is black in the dark areas when compared to this bottle, maybe not. Even that darker area might not fully need to be a number 10 black. It could be a 7 or an 8, right? So now we've got this grid and we can kind of assign numbers to it. It's an easier way to think about it and talk about it. So once again, the info for this is posted in your exercise outline. And don't hesitate to contact me with any questions. Keep in mind, this is a really difficult assignment, these value grids. It'd be one thing if we just did 0 through 5. You have half the amount, a lot easier to deal with. But going 10, like that's a lot. Nobody is going to be perfect, and there's going to be room for improvement on all of them. So I'll probably give you some feedback on your grid, just some basics, so that if you want to keep working on it, you can, and get some extra credit for that. Because no matter how good you are, there's always room for improvement. It's an extremely difficult assignment, but it's good practice, and it's a good tool to have, this grid that we can use throughout the semester. So that'll be worth 50 points. As long as you do it, you'll get your points. As long as it looks like you actually, you know, followed the outline and tried, you get your points. And if after the feedback I give you, you want to work more on it, you can do that, and at any point show it to me later, show me another picture, and get extra 20 points. So thank you, appreciate you guys, and we'll see you on Thursday.